Good evening. On the school committee to order Thursday, October 27th.
17th.
October 17th.
Man, get it together.
Yeah, my glasses on. October 17th at 6:32 PM. First item of business is the statement regarding recording, please.
Good evening. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted to YouTube and other social media platforms. By participating in this meeting, you understand that the recording can contain your video stream or your audio stream, including images of yourself or anyone in the room with you if you choose to enable your video or audio device during the meeting, as well as anything or anyone else that may be in the background could be recorded. The recording could include any opinions you contribute and anything you say about yourself. On occasion, chat within the meeting could also be captured in the meeting recording. Therefore, anyone attending the recorded meeting may have aspects of their personal data recorded if they actively participate or not.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Dr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Marsh,
Yes.
Mr. Deschamps,
Yes.
Mr. Willannon,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly, Ms. Garvey, and Ms. Cartier will not be here. Mrs. Chamberlain? Here. Ms. Muff? Here. Mr. Alfonso? Mr. Wiggler?
Here.
Mrs. Thompson? Here. Mr. Nutter?
Here.
Ms. LaRange? Here. And Chairman Brophy.
Here. Thank you. First item of business is the approval of the September 12th, 24 minutes. You had it in the portal as well as your packet. Is there a motion to accept?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Lee, moved by Dr. Allen. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Not a question, but I just want to point out to the chair, who wasn't here last meeting back. Line there, that's 7:55 PM.
Thank you.
Just pointing it out.
Thank you for giving me a understanding of when the meeting ended. Goal.
A goal.
No pressure.
No pressure. It's not a competition, really, but 7:45.
That's very good.
That's a pretty time.
Oh, okay.
Well done, Deb.
You all helped, thank you. It was the team effort.
Any potential questions, other questions, comments? Any omissions, deletions, or corrections? Seeing and hearing none. Nobody's online.
No.
We can do all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Next item is advisory council of the superintendent, and I just wanted to welcome Ella. I met Ella. I wasn't here last meeting, and Deb introduced you along with the committee. And again, thank you for being part of the school committee this year and looking forward to your perspective, the voice of the students.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So student advisory, before I go to the ROTC report, anything on your concerns or anything you'd like to bring that you would like to bring up?
I actually have a quick presentation on unified basketball if you guys like to see.
That would be fantastic.
Bear with me 1 second, Ella.
Absolutely. You're gonna get to see it after all.
I'm having a moment today. I don't know.
You might want to tell them you just came from it. That's why you're dressed like.
A little unprofessional here.
No, you just came from a game, correct?
I did, yeah. So I am also a cadet at NJRTC, but I love, so I'm in unified basketball team and the unified track team. And so I actually joined unified sports as an accident. My sister had, she had soccer practice. And so I was just after lifting, but lifting doesn't take 2 hours. And so the athletic trainer, Renee, she said, hey, why don't you join our unified basketball team? I was like, sure, why not? I got the time. Can't be too hard. And it actually turned out to be the best accident of my life. It's been a really great experience for me. It's so heartwarming to be with a team, have some pictures of me, the team right here. And yeah, it's really great. Want to go to the next slide? So we are a unified champion school, which means we're in the top 10 unified schools in Massachusetts. So that's a really big honor. We just got that this year, and we've earned it. We practice Tuesday, Thursday for an hour 45, and we just have a great time. We do scrimmages and we shoot around, we meet friends. It's been a great experience. And we have so much support from Quabbin. As you can see, this was pictures from our game last week. And yeah, we had so many teams. We had the football team, we had the cheerleaders, and everybody came out to support, stayed the whole time. And it was really great. It was so nice to see everybody was cheering and our athletes. And I just really loved having everybody there for us. And we won. We actually won today too, so.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's just my experience with Unified.
How do you really tell who wins? And I'm asking because I went to one of the basketball games last year. And there was this one kid. And they would bring about a 6-foot hoop out for him at the end of the court. And everybody would stand around and they'd hand the ball to him. And he'd make a basket, or he hoped he would make a basket.
Yeah, so that's the great thing about Unified. We have athletes of all different abilities. And so some of our athletes, they have, they need like the smaller hoop and whatnot. So we have a bigger hoop, but then we also have our little smaller hoop. So our athletes who maybe can't get it up there can still participate because they have their smaller hoop. And so we score it like a normal basketball game. I don't know, 2 points for a regular shot, 3 points for 3-pointers. And yeah, that's how it's scored.
And I see who you have number one, the first person there in the,
Right here.
So I also attended the unified basketball game, actually, with Miss Bennett. I'm gonna get teary just thinking about it. So, our student athletes are amazing. The team is amazing. The coaches are amazing. But for me, I think the most amazing part of the afternoon was one of our students with disabilities sang the national anthem. And what was so incredible about it is that you all know Lisa Rollins, who's one of our former graduates and now a unified basketball coach. She's a real life coach. She loves it, takes it very seriously. When this little girl went to sing, she was super, super nervous. And so Lisa came up to her, and as she was getting ready to sing, she put her arm around her just like this and was like, I don't know, I was across the court. I don't know what she's saying, but I imagine it was like, you got this, you got this. She starts to sing. I actually have a series of pictures, and then you see Lisa go like this. She's singing and she is going for every high note, and Lisa steps away just like this. And I was like, wow, right? Like, that's what we want, that coaching, that mentoring. So it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And our students and our teachers and our staff, everybody's there. I mean, Ella's pictures show it, but like that gym is literally like thrumming, right? With noise, it's vibrating. Everybody's so excited for both teams. And it's not about the score. It's not about the win. And I think what also was incredible to me was I saw our Gardner players, right, who are handing the ball to our students and our students handing the ball to the Gardner players so they could take another shot. It's just, it's incredible. So I actually nominated the unified basketball team for a high five on WCVB. So if any of you are so inclined, you could send them a little email that says high five at WCVB and say, we know our team was nominated. We encourage this nomination, and maybe they'll come out and actually do a little segment on them. But it really, I'm just so proud to have the program as part of our district. So thank you, Ella, for participating. It's just great.
The friendships I've made and we've all made are they're really amazing, like, I don't know if you know Mia Dukos, but Mia Dukos, Johnny, Steven, Simon and I, we're all Jedi Masters, so we had the highest concentration of Jedi Masters on a bus in the whole state of Massachusetts.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I didn't put that in my application for the nomination, but I could probably add the Jedi Master factor.
I'll send it.
I know Lee and then Deb. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, when we started, the concept of this a few years ago when we started, I thought was great when this whole thing started. But to see the way the community has embraced it, you know, as the superintendent was saying, that is the key thing, just to see. I mean, everybody involved and the sportsmanship. I mean, to me, it brings back what sports is all about, as opposed to, I mean, not that sports is bad, but I mean, this is just such a sharing thing, it's not a competitive thing. It's
Humanistic.
it's pushing everybody there to do their best, whether they're on your team or they're not on your team. I just think it's great. And I'm glad we, as Quabbin, as a district, have really embraced this.
Exactly. Deb?
Yeah, and I mean, I think this, was the vision that we all want for Quabbin. And I was wondering if, as a full committee, if we could send something to the nomination, we could do it individually as well if we like, but
Second the
I'd
motion.
like to request that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean,
I'll send you the link.
we'll do that. A motion was made, it was seconded. I think as a committee, we as a committee believe to be able to.
Yeah.
WCB?
Sure.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Channel.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstention. Beautiful. The only comment I want to make is thank you for the presentation. How many games is on your docket this year?
So we have 4 total games this year and we've
Okay.
already had 2, but our next one is, I think it's home on the 22nd, so if anybody's interested in coming. love to have you.
Is there another unified sport that will be part in the winter or the spring?
Yes, so we currently don't have a winter unified sport, but we do have unified track in the spring, which I also participate in.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other part is the middle and high school report in our JRTC cadets, Catherine Tucker and Kingston McKenzie. Welcome.
So we have a little slideshow we'd like to present for you all. My name is Cadet Mackenzie, and
My name's Cadet Tucker.
this is our basic leadership training presentation. As you can see, this is me and Cadet Tucker looking extremely lively. Trip. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what is BLT? BLT is essentially a 4-day and 3-night-long stay at a naval station in Newport, Rhode Island. During the stay, we learn leadership skills. We learn how to be a leader, how to be a follower, as in following orders, making sure we listen, pay close attention to detail. This makes us a better person overall. And it's planned by Quabbin, and we have Coventry High School from Coventry, Rhode Island, and Oxford High School attend. So next slide, please.
So what happens at BLT? BLT is jam-packed. We never stop. One thing that we did is we went to SWAS, which stands for Surface Warfare Officers School, where we got to use different simulations from that the actual officers who are trained to be officers get to use. And it's so cool. You get to steer all the different watercrafts around harbors and all these different places. I steered one around Japan. It was so cool.
We also have our daily PT. Now, it looks like it's at night, but that's actually at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, it's great, just very tiring. It's an amazing experience.
And a PT test at 5 in the morning.
which consisted of 2 minutes straight of push-ups, as many as you can, 2 minutes straight of sit-ups, as many as you can, and then a mile run. And it was great. Up here, we have our swimming survival school, where we quite literally learned how to make floats out of your pants. So say you're in the middle of the ocean, stranded for whatever reason, and all you have is your pants. We learned, I think 4 different techniques of using air to shove water into the pants and use them as buoys.
We also did orienteering, where we ran around the whole entire Navy base looking for different flags with our compasses, or not our compasses, our maps, to just write off the names and win. I think your team won, didn't you?
No, we did not.
Team building and community. So the first day you get to BLT, you get thrown into a platoon with random kids. You get thrown into a room, most likely with a random kid. I got thrown with a random girl. She was very nice, but she was really. And so this really is an opportunity for us to work together and learn how to work as a team and be able to trust each other and be able to just agree and try your best to win. Yeah. Next slide, please.
Leadership and followership. So at BLT, we learned that 2 of the most valuable traits a cadet can hold is followership and leadership. So leadership basically taught us how to take initiative. Before my experience at BLT, I was very shy. Like you could not get me into a situation like this in front of all of you today. But after BLT, I learned how important it is to take charge and just be confident overall. Followership, we were taught that we need to follow orders. We need to pay close attention to detail. Like I think it's a picture of me here with my awful posture. We were told that we need to make hospital corners. I don't know if any of you are familiar with hospital corners, but it's an odd technique of folding your pants. That taught us how to follow orders, and it was very difficult.
Up here, we had to learn how to hold our trays correctly when getting food,
Yes.
because there's a way to do it right.
So that was great. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Next is general training and critical thinking. You have to think very, very critically when you're stressed and tired and doing lots of physical activity. You haven't rested very well. Like we got sleep, we got enough sleep, but we didn't. We were tired. And this really helped us because sometimes you're going to be in situations where you have to think very fast and you have to be very precise and decide something quickly. We also learned general training, and general military training is something that anyone who joins the military has to learn. So we learned about bullying, tasing, sexual harassment, suicide prevention, and most importantly, upstander intervention. I really think that learning these and learning more about them and understanding what it means has really helped me become a better person, and just I'm hopefully will be able to notice if someone is going through this and help them. And
Next slide, please. But why choose BLT, or basic leadership training? Well, compared to any other school field trip, basic leadership training is something that you will know, like you will know forever. It teaches us so many amazing things. Before BLT, I had such issues in ROTC. I think we had NJROTC class for about 1 week before we started. I was nowhere near perfect. I'm still nowhere near perfect, but I'm doing a lot better now. Like I mentioned, I think 2 times already, we learned how to follow orders and pay close attention to detail. We learned leadership, and it's just an amazing program. Yeah.
it also really helps you with community. You really feel part of something wearing the uniform every single week. And just, it makes you feel like you have a place in high school.
Yes. And one more thing we wanted to add is this year, I think, was the most cadets we had attending BLT for in a long time, I think since COVID probably. We had 110 cadets total, which is a lot, 70 of which were quadrant cadets. Big number, yes, very big number. And we were just so thankful that we were able to go on this trip. We would like to thank our families, our parents, and you. So thank you so much.
And
That's the end of our
Captain-
presentation.
And Captain Brennick and Lieutenant Friedel.
I did not write this script.
Oh, and we'd also like to thank Lieutenant Junior Grade Jack Forrest for making this beautiful slideshow for us.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
This is just another picture, and that's the end.
Look at all the
Questions?
people.
Any questions for the cadets? Dr. Allen?
Yeah, more comments. We all know this is one of the outstanding programs that we have in this school. We thank Captain Brannick and the cadets as you are, and it was occurring to me as they were going through the curriculum. We hear about citizenship. Why don't you teach citizenship? This is it. This is probably the best example of applied citizenship that I've seen. And when I was over there chatting with him before the meeting started, I was reminiscing with him. One of the cadets that went through there, stayed with me, went back to Hamburg, Germany, went through the police academy and is now on the SWAT team in Hamburg, Germany. And this was his way of getting into it and learning what you said, leadership and followership
Yes.
and those sorts of things, which applies to a state police position as well as defending the country, being a good citizen, those sorts of things. It's just outstanding.
Fantastic. Dave?
I was talking to Captain before this. This is the second year I went to the graduation? Graduation ceremony, yes, sir. Captain, tell them how many people from Quabbin were there.
Well, we submitted over 450 names to have as guests coming to the base. And between us and the other two schools, a little over 600 people showed up for the graduation cadets.
Wow.
The number is great, but really in what these two cadets were trying to tell you, and hopefully you got it loud and clear, when they thank their parents and you. This doesn't happen unless this ROTC thing doesn't happen without the support of this school committee, but more importantly, support of the kids by their parents. Parents sometimes have a little bit of trepidation about sending their kids off to a naval station for basic leadership training because they don't understand. They don't understand what goes on down there. You know, it's up at 5 every morning. They have duty at night, so they're up for an hour, doing fire watches, keeping people safe, learning to watch out, stay alert when they're tired. And we get them to bed around 9 or 9:30 at night. But they go, decision making and you say, do, say, do, say, do. And the parents support that. So both Lieutenant and I really appreciate their trust of us and your trust of us to be able to do things like this. Not every school is allowed to do basic leadership training. Some schools don't do it the way we do it. You won't find us on YouTube, not that we have something to hide, but it can be misinterpreted. But we use professionals. So our cadet aides don't change their spots to become drill sergeants or anything else like that. They are trainers. They're seniors and juniors who are trainers and educators of the underclassmen, and they do it without getting swelled heads. It's really amazing to see. I do have to say this, and this isn't what this was supposed to be. It's more of them, less of me. But Lieutenant Friedel puts this together. And then she gives it to the cadet leadership. And they adjust it as they see fit. There's some parameters, of course. And then they take it, they practice it here for hours, the amount of hours that it takes for them to go ahead and prepare themselves. And then they get down there and they realize that this great plan that they just practiced, the whole thing changes as soon as the first shot's fired. And that's exactly what happens. And so they have to learn how to react to them. And we don't bail them out very often, but we're there to provide them guidance. The other thing that happens with all the different activities is every activity from the bus ride down to the graduation and everything in between gets what we call ORM, Operational Risk Management. We have a senior cadet who looks at every event in detail and writes a risk management document that I review just before we do it, and then I sign it saying that this is a safe event. If something's not covered, then we reject it and we redo until we get it right before we actually do it down there. So that's all done back here. The guidance that Ms. Hicks gave us was, how does BLT help their transition into high school? I changed it a little bit and said, how does BLT help you in your transition into ROTC? And then how does ROTC help your transition into high school? And what they said, and I hope you caught it, was that it gave 100 cadets the opportunity to feel like they belong in a community other than the rest of the community. And as I tell them, well, I don't call it a family, they call it a family. So it's really a real bonding moment, a bonding 3 nights and 4 days. So.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Allen?
Yeah, it hadn't occurred to me to just now, this risk management. 10, 12 years ago, we certainly had a good example of that from ROTC after the ball. One of the students was out and was killed. And you folks came up with a plan so that that would never happen again. And the plan's been implemented for about 10 years.
This will be the 10th lock-in that we've done.
Yeah.
This March.
Kids are not out there on their own in danger, but they're all here with, as you said, a lock-in and safe and doing good things. There's a plan, there's activities, all sorts of.
Oh, they don't sleep.
They don't put themselves in danger either.
They can remember every single thing that they've done. And they don't regret anything that they've done. That's the whole thing. We take a picture when they arrive and all their fine uniforms and gowns and stuff like that. And then we take a picture of them at the end when they're dead dog tired, but alive. And that's the key.
Yes.
Anyone else? Just want to say thank you for the presentation, clear, concise, and I like that, you felt you went out of your comfort zone, both of you, to do this. And so not only are you learning leadership skills and the follow-ship skills, lastly, the way you adopt and adapt your learning as you go. So it's not just already in place and you have to then adjust. So adjusting, adopting, adapting, that's leadership. And then decision-making. And then for other pieces. And then that community piece, how you rely on one another. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. You want to stay for the rest of this?
No.
All right, we'll go right.
Bye, Catherine.
We'll go to the administrative reports. Superintendent of schools.
So you have our director's report in the drive and in your packet. We're just going to highlight anything that might stand out. I know you're going to read it, but one thing I just want to make you aware of is our parent-teacher conferences for elementary students this year will be a full day. This is the first time in many years that they've done a full day. We're going to try this. We'll get feedback from our parents and our teachers, but they're very excited to have the opportunity to have a little bit of extra time with families. Last year, you might remember that Commissioner Riley was supposed to visit us last spring and he couldn't make it. And then shortly after, he resigned from his position. But Commissioner Russell Johnston is going to come visit us in November. It is the Monday before Thanksgiving. So it's, not a great day. It'll be busy. I'm sure the middle high school will have a lot of things planned, typically some spirit days and whatnot. But we're going to take him and show him some of the work that we've been doing in our middle school with inclusion, co-teaching, that kind of thing. I just wanted to put on there that you remember I had scheduled some meetings with our select boards and our finance committees, Julia and I. The first one happens in October. You're all welcome to come. If you all come, though, I believe we probably have to post it as a meeting.
If we have a
So
Formal.
we will do probably have you RSVP to Jess if you're going to attend.
October 30th.
Yep.
At 5, right?
5:30?
5 or 5:30. I checked my calendar.
Yeah, the other things of note, they talked about the unified program. We have a parent safety night on October 24th. That's next Thursday. We're offering an in-person and a virtual option. I just want to make you aware that we've had to make some staffing changes and updates there in your packet. And we are currently, you know, as you get into the year and we've had transition of students, so on and so forth, we're paying really close attention to our support, especially at our elementary levels. Jill and I have been talking a lot about the needs of our students and just making sure that we are providing them with what they need. I wanted to just make you aware that there was an opportunity to simply express interest in a Chapter 74 program. So schools can run up to 5 Chapter 74 programs without having to have a vocational director. This is new in the past few years, but you cannot run a program that is offered at our partner schools such as Pathfinder and Monty Tech. I just want to go through the process of learning more about what that could possibly look like for Quabbin. So I expressed interest and I'll be attending some webinars and looking at that a little bit more closely. And we had talked about inviting you to our schools. So the principals have put together some dates and times. I'm just waiting on all the dates and times from all of the schools and we'll have Jess send that out to you. It's just, if you want to come and see what happens, it's not going to be a big fancy show. It's going to be a day in the life. You're welcome to come walk through our buildings. I know that the first opportunity is in Hubbardston. It's next week. Principal Cook, who will be here in just a few minutes, is planning an all-school meeting. And so that's the first one, if you want to kind of put that one on your radar. But each school is offering you a date in the fall and another date in the spring, and they would just love to see you. It's hard to capture. Our students do an amazing job, right? But it's also sort of hard to capture the daily happenings in each of our buildings. And so I think it's great that they want to welcome you in, and we hope that you take advantage of that. So
Thank you.
that's all I have. I don't know, Shelley, if you want to highlight anything on your report this month?
Sure. So just in regards to our professional development, we have kind of a focus for the school year. So the middle high school is really focusing on using professional learning communities, and they're looking at formative assessment and data analysis. So by looking at that, the student data, they're able to create formative assessments that will hopefully, they can look at that formative assessment and see how students are doing and make instructional changes in their practice before the students get to their summative assessments. And the goal is to really kind of support student learning so that we can increase overall student outcomes for all of our students. At the elementary level, we're going to be focusing on writing for the year. We're using a book called The Writing Rope as a framework for our work within HMH. So I'm really excited about all of those things that we're doing. We're going to continue our work with Dr. Hawley across the district. So he'll be with us on the 23rd. And then other than that, we've made some changes to the elementary report cards and also grade 6. So instead of having trimesters at the elementary level, we have now moved to having our elementary report cards go home quarterly. And then we also looked at the academic performance indicators, and instead of grading students on a 1, 2, 3, 4 scale, we changed that scale to MB, which is meeting the benchmark, PB progressing, BB beginning, NB not yet. And then under our social skills and work habits, we're also using like consistently, often, sometimes, and rarely. I think that'll be a little bit more friendly for parents and a little bit easier to understand. I think they were equating the 1, 2, 3, 4 sometimes with grades. So hopefully this will be a positive change with that. And we have Dibbles letters that are going out. So Dibbles is a screening that we use to look for any reading difficulties that students may have, and also screen for students that might be at risk of dyslexia. And some of the areas that they screen students in is that alphabetic knowledge, to see if students know names and sounds of letters and letter patterns, phonemic awareness, which is students' knowledge of individual sounds and language, word passage reading, students' ability to read words accurately and fluently, reading comprehension, that they're able to understand what they're reading, and then rapid automated naming, so that can they name a limited set of objects or letters. So we've done those screenings, or we're conducting those screenings, I should say, kindergarten up through grade 5. And any students that fall below benchmark, we will be sending those reports home to parents coming up soon. So on the 25th, it'll go out to grades 1 through 5. And then because the kindergarten screening window is a little bit later, they will be able to talk to parents on the 5th during conference time if any of their students were below benchmark, or if we have any concerns. And for any parents that don't attend the conference, we'll send those letters home to the parents the next day.
That's a new requirement from DESE when they pass some of the dyslexia regulations, just so you know. That's why we do that. Kevin, do you want to talk a little bit about New Braintree? Sorry.
Jess, were you able to get that article, that Boston Globe article?
I actually was able to, but to be honest with you, I got to put it in the drive.
So it was actually a front page article last week. I meant to set it aside, but I used newspapers to control my weeds, and somehow it went with the rest of the newspapers. But anyway, so it spoke of technical schools, but gist of the article seemed to be that Gardner had set something up with Monty Tech, so that the Gardner kids who couldn't get in through time, apparently it seemed the way I read it, that they have a program where seniors, so Gardner seniors can now take some specific programs at Monty Tech. So they're not, technically going to like graduate Monty Tech or anything, but it looks like there's an agreement there somehow that, so some of their kids who weren't accepted as freshmen, can do something. So I don't know, once again, if that's something, you can.
I actually have started that conversation with Pathfinder. So the Pathfinder superintendent has been very approachable. And I asked him if that was something that we could think about doing as a relationship with Quabbin students and Pathfinder. He was speaking to the superintendent of Monty Tech to learn a little bit more about it. And he is very much open to the idea. Monty Tech also did a program last year, and they're offering it again that Jill can probably talk a little bit more about, but our post-grad students were able to take advantage of a program through Monty Tech. They'll be running that program again as well. And I think we had one student who actually completed the program. Oh, great. 3 or 4.
The difference this year is that there's an expense that comes.
Yes, last year was free. Mhm.
This year it's not free.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are looking at those opportunities. It'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Had a meeting at the State Police Training Facility earlier this week. They supply the water for New Braintree Elementary School. Planning an upcoming capital project. They're one of the water towers, the outlet pipe on the bottom of the tower that goes down to us is rotted on the elbowward of this tower. So they're gonna have to do a semi shutdown. So they'll put an insertion valve into the pipe itself in the tank. So they can shut the water off at that point and then dig the ground up and find out how much of the pipe they need to replace. So we'll not have any water or fire protection at the school at that time. So I met with the state police and the fire chief from New Braintree. Right now, we're currently looking at doing this on April vacation. The expectation is it's about a 48-hour job. It really just depends on, once you get underground, how much of that pipe needs to be replaced. If things go the way it's planned and laid out, there won't be an extensive need for water treatment or anything else like that going towards elementary school. It'll just be a matter of bleaching the line coming from there, as opposed to if the insertion valve for some reason doesn't work, and you have to drain the entire tank, then you have to worry about microovers and everything else. So right now it's planned for April vacation. The thing that's kind of hinging that is on next week. Trying to avoid having the class start prior to us doing this job.
Awesome. Andrew's at MassQ, the technology conference, but you can see his report there, and then Julia.
Last week, we met with our health insurance broker and the news was not great. The initial quote for what our health insurance renewal rate included a 14.3% increase for FY 25 rates. They went back to Blue Cross, did some negotiating with some data. The revised rate increase right now sits at 12.9% for starting January 1st of 2025. That rate has the potential to come down, but it would involve making some plan changes. So in order to discuss that, we have an insurance advisory committee meeting scheduled for Monday, October 21st. To meet with our union representatives to discuss potential plan changes and how that would affect our employees. And make decisions about whether or not we want to make any of those plan changes. So after that, then once we make those decisions based on feedback at that meeting, we will have 2 information sessions with our staff on October 23rd and November 5th. All of our staff have been invited to those meetings so that they can listen to information from the insurance brokers prior to open enrollment that starts November 1st. Next up in your packets, there is the Q1 appropriation control report. No real big news there. I just want to point out that in the 9,000 line tuition, it shows a very large negative number. That is only because we haven't used our Q1 circuit breaker payment yet to balance out that line item, but that will be balanced out.
Okay.
Yep. Second report is the Q1 grant report. So these are the grants that we currently have been awarded, what our award amounts are for the year. Something that DESE has changed is that all of the grants now are in a new application called GEMS. And because of that, DESE can manage them a little more tightly. All of the grants now are reimbursements. It used to be that we would get chunks of money up front and then be able to request money quarterly. Now we cannot request funds until funds are spent. So you will see cash balances in the negative. And most of those are a timing issue because of when we close the report, when warrants were paid versus when we've requested funds. And sometimes there's a delay because we have grant amendments or we're waiting for grant applications to be finalized. So I don't want anybody to be scared or nervous that they're seeing these negative numbers in the grant report.
And that's because now it's all a reimbursement
Yes.
model.
Yep, all reimbursement.
Okay.
Next thing up is the school committee met with Mars on September 26th and had a workshop around the regional agreement. And one of the topics that came up in that was looking at the calculation that we use for assessments and the potential of using a rolling 3-year average for calculating resident enrollment. I reached out to both Mars and to DESE to see if there was data on how many other districts were doing that. And surprisingly, nobody is tracking that. Nobody has that information. I did put out a question to my listserv. I got 15 responses back. Of the people that responded, 11 districts use a 1-year average like we currently do. 3 districts use a 3-year average. And one of those districts, they use a 1-year average for their operating budget and a 3-year average for their capital budget. And then there's one district that currently uses a 5-year average. There was one district that responded that they're in a similar position that we are, that they're currently debating whether to move from a 1-year to some sort of rolling average. So I did some quick number crunching for you so that you can see the potential impact of what this might look like. So I apologize that there are tons and tons of numbers on this one page, but I've lived in spreadsheets, that's what happens. On the left-hand side of this, you'll see actual enrollments that were used to actually calculate your assessments. They're blocked for each of your towns. On the right-hand side, you'll see the hypotheticals of what that would have looked like for FY 24 and FY 25 if we used a rolling 3-year average. And I think that you'll see the impact is fairly minimal. Right, for most communities, the change in the percentage of what would be in your assessments is under 1%. So it's sort of a conversation to decide whether or not we want to go to this. And one thing I just want to point out is that in the formula of how we calculate assessments, this number really comes into play at the very end of the process. Right, so this number applies after your required local contribution, after your targets, after offsets from E&D, after offsets for circuit breaker, right? This number really only applies to whatever is left remaining after all of those other things. So yes, we can crunch some more numbers. If you want to see what those actual assessment numbers would have looked like for the past couple of years, I can crunch those if you want for the November meeting. But the required local contribution really is the bigger factor in determining that assessment.
Any questions for,
When you check with these other districts,
Yes.
did you get a chance to chat with anybody and say, hey, how long have you been doing this and what do you think? How's it working?
Not really, I just put out a quick question to the listserv and people generally just, threw back a quick response. There was one district that said that most everybody uses their October 1 numbers because it makes sense, they're certified, we spend a lot of time making sure those numbers are correct. There was one district who said that they use March 1st numbers. I thought that's really late in the game. But.
Alicia?
I think, especially now, Hubbardston's been hit really hard with these assessments the past year, so I think it would be helpful to see the assessment number, just to see if the money, the percentage does change significantly or at all from that. I don't even know, just that I think Hubbardston will need to do this.
I think that's a great idea to keep looking because I know, anybody else have comment yet? Mark?
Yeah, one of the issues with Hubbardston, I talked to the town administrator briefly, I ran into him, is they're still looking for, and we talked about this a number of times, 5-year projected budget. We've been told why that's very difficult, but Cheryl explained it. But they still have this idea that somehow we should be able to put something together. I'm just telling you it's out there.
Well, what they asked us for, so I just want to clarify, what they asked us for was a 5-year capital plan, which we've been working on and I think have either submitted or are about to submit to them. That's what they asked us for. I don't believe we've ever been asked for a 5-year budget.
I thought that came up before.
Over the years, we've had towns ask about like what a 5-year might look like. And you're right, there was a gentleman from Hubbardston, I believe, that he was asking 10 years ago that. But again, from the local required contribution, the target shares, there's other things here that we can explain. And then even now with the hold harmless discussions about how funding is happening, that's another perspective that we're going to continue to educate finance committees, select boards about how the financing piece is. So aside from looking at what a 3-year rolling average will look like, it kind of opens, as we had our discussion with our professional development with Mars of the regional agreement. This is something that possibly that whatever amendments that we may want to tweak on our agreement, we could run this perspective through, because it's not going to be just us. We're going to be creating a committee of a community committee to look if we make any changes. And that would be a very relevant understanding, not only from us for the school committee, but also the feedback and to hear what realities look like if you did do a 3. And I've learned a little bit about this, about understanding, thanks to Julia. When you look at it, the pie, I appreciate your language. The pie is still 100%. Whatever the money is, we still have the same amount, whatever it is here. The next question is the flattening or a high and a low between Julia and the superintendent. I got a little more, a better understanding on this, to understand a little more. You've got some highs and lows, so where they even it out rather than a hit. You get a lesser hit, but then it gets what? Spread out. But the 100% still stays 100%. So Julia's right. It becomes a budget issue, a funding issue of more of that. But again, I'm asking colleagues, is this a worthwhile discussion to keep talking about and looking? Because we can just make that change or not. It's up to us.
I think from Hubbardston's perspective for the past several years is they've seen a lot of spikes. And that is because of the house
Wow.
valuations being increased and our student population is the only town that is increasing. And I think that's over the years been more problematic for the towns is, and that they can't ever plan because we always have these big spikes. But that isn't something under our control as a school committee. And that's what Cheryl used to explain. I could project that our budget will only increase 2% for the next 5 years, but it doesn't matter. I can't tell you what your assessments are going to be because we don't control the required local contribution. So that's something the towns need to understand. The finance committees need to understand. The towns always have a turnover, just like on this committee, of new people. We need to continue to try to educate and communicate how the process works. And if we can gather support, I don't know how many were on the call with the Project 211, but the state is taking action. Legislators are ready. They're rolling up their sleeves, and education and helping this funding is going to be their #1 priority. And they want to file bills right away in January. So the more support we can get from all of us to express our needs and the imbalances, because the formula doesn't work. And that's what's caused a lot of the hard feelings, I think, with the towns, especially, you know, when they keep getting hit with the bigger assessments than the others. So trying to make it more equitable on a state level is really where we all need to just come together and make our voices heard.
Then when you alter, then back to Lee.
I think of all the towns that would benefit from this, it would be Hubbardston, because it looks to me like they've gained almost, in these 4 years, almost 100 students. So the rolling average for them, maybe smooth out those numbers. The other towns don't seem like, I don't think they're that impacted, but if we can help Hubbardston, I mean, they're the town that really needs me, you know, every year in our budget, it seems like they're the ones that are most impacted. So I think, I think it'd be good for them.
I think we need to, I mean, obviously, if interest has been expressed by even just one town, if not all towns, I think we need to look at it.
Beautiful.
And when we meet with FinComs, et cetera, we'll have the information and say, look, we've looked at this, we've heard people want this. We could even look at a 5-year. I mean, I don't want to impose, no, really, I don't want to impose a lot on your time. I think we get, we do enough so we have enough information so that we can discuss it, in a basic manner, so to speak. But, once again, and following what you say, it smooths stuff out, but you're going to get the complaint on year 2 or 3 when it's like, oh gee, our assessment would have been 8%, but because we're in this 3 or 5 year thing, it's 9.5%. Why do we, you're never going to please everyone, and you probably won't please much of anyone. But I think it's worthwhile to pursue.
Right, and just on the data, I purposely only went back to October of 2020, right? Because prior to that, like the COVID numbers, right? So that a lot of people's enrollment, right, is not indicative of communities during that time period, so. Figured I'd throw that out there.
So,
Superintendent.
it sounds like, I just want to make sure that what you'd like us to do is before we have the meeting in October with the select boards and the finance committees, to run these numbers again so that we can have a discussion on that night. And then we can certainly share in November. And then I think you're going to need to make a decision about whether you want to make an amendment to the regional agreement, and then we would open that process up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And I will get clarification. I'll reach out.
Yeah, I didn't get specific just capital plan. I got
Yeah,
the idea he's talking about. Just to get us.
I could win a lot of money if I could hit that right.
That was explained to us. Why it's so.
Well, you know, I mean, right now with inflation rates and you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You see our insurance, I mean, we could make a guess.
But the towns are facing the same.
Of course they are. I actually attended the Worcester County Superintendent's meeting this morning, and the president of the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents was there, and it's gonna be a rough year. It's gonna be a rough year. So, and there are a lot of things that they're legislatively pushing to the point where they realize in order to get anything passed, they have to narrow it down. And it's going to be really hard to prioritize for them. So we'll see where that goes.
Anyone else? Comment on this? So again, I think that the perspective is that, and then while we're still talking on this, did you appreciate the meeting with Mars about our regional agreement? And would you agree that there are some potential minor changes in language that we should look at? It doesn't mean we made a final decision, but I think it moves this committee, as we talked about a year ago, to have a motion to move the process to amend the regional agreement. We didn't say exactly what pieces yet, because there are some headings, some language pieces you want to look at. We also have languages that you want to look at, maybe for any other lease perspective that we want to do as we work through. And then leases are separate, like boilerplate and any referral language that we have in there. Is that the sense that we are at? Is there a motion to amend, to move the process to amend the regional agreement, to look towards it?
Well, I mean, so you would need to approach this essentially as a negotiation. We need to, you know, kind of have a piecemeal approach. I mean, first of all, we have to look at the current agreement and see in the last 14 years, I'm trying to remember now, what legal changes have been made that make certain language in our agreement either obsolete or improper.
Well, that was.
So that would be the first thing we look at. And
That's
so-
what we did last on the meeting, and on the 26th. The Mars outlined in our presentation what the legal perspective, what we have.
Right, but what I'm saying is so we're going to meet with people from the town, representative from the town. So the first order of business should be, and I'm presuming last time we had a legal counsel there, I'm presuming we're going to do that again. The first order of business should be, okay, here's language that must be changed. It's not negotiable. It's like, this is now the law
Correct.
or the regulation, et cetera, and go through that, have that as a done deal, and then you move that aside. And the second thing I think we need to look at, or one approach, is to look both at the leases and the agreement. Because, and I think Walter has actually looked at it quite a bit, there's language that conflicts within the two. I have, before Cheryl left, I met with her and I have her breakup of what she thought was language from, she put the lease and the agreement and had little notes on either side saying, oh, this doesn't match with this doesn't match with this. So, you know, I've got her paperwork on that. So there is some language that we have to look at. At the same time, we have to decide, you know, kind of what we want in the lease too, because there's certain language we want to keep, but others we may we may want to change, and if that's going to change, we have to make sure it doesn't conflict with the agreement. So, I mean, if you want to do a motion and go forward with that as a first step, that's fine, but the thing is, we've got a lot of homework to do before we can get to the stage of, okay, let's set a meeting date and towns, you guys get your representatives and let's sit down. So that's fine to start the process, but I don't want anybody to think, let's vote this in and then, next week we're gonna start meeting
We
with.
can't because it's a longer process, as we all know.
Yeah.
And superintendent, if you may comment if you'd like, but not only any language changes, you'd have to get them approved through all the towns, whatever the languages are, and it has to be approved by the Department of Education. So, and if you made any changes like this, hypothetically, you wouldn't be looking to like FY 27 by the time you'd be getting for time wise. So it makes sense to look at that, and then if there's minor changes to do, if there are, and there is, because we did go through that process on the 26th, and we saw some things that we liked to change and some heading stuff, then leases can come after any other tweaking to match that. But you want to take it piecemeal with a facilitator and somebody to walk with us on this like we did before. And
plus then the next step will be each side, I hate to say sides, but there's gonna be sides. Each side will have its wish list. We may have a wish list. We're gonna talk to the superintendent. We've looked at some language over the years and said, oh, I wish we didn't have this language in, or I wish he had other languages. So we're gonna have a wish list. There may be some, certain townspeople, and we've heard of them over the years, that they'll have their own wish list. So we have to figure out how to approach that. A wish list is just not say, hey, we like this language, let's go for it. We have to have, solid reasons why this makes sense in an agreement, and we're gonna go forward for it. And then that's where negotiation comes in. I mean, it's gonna be a give and take. This is not gonna be a short process.
right, and also, what did Maureen and Sheila say about Quabbin and the regional agreement that we have? It is a strong, solid model that a lot of districts don't have. We're already 95, 98% there. Right, Julia?
One quick point is that our current leases expire June 30th of 2025. According to our leases, we have to give 6 months' notice whether we intend to renew those leases. So we need to know by January 1st if we are renewing the existing leases or if we're going to be proposing alternate ones. A little bit of a deadline there.
So then the other thing is then we have to ask legal counsel. So what happens if we don't have a lease agreement July 1st? I mean, do we become, tenants at will, month to month? I mean, is that what we're going to look at? I mean, I don't know how it works with school districts, but obviously we need a building to house our children. I mean, if a town, let's say hypothetically says, hey, we really like the whole wing of this school for our town offices and really want to do it, and July 1st comes and we don't have a lease agreement, can that town say, well, you know what? We're taking half this building. If you want to have a lease agreement for the other half, we can go for it. Can they do that? I don't know. Why not?
$25 years is up.
Or can we do a 1 year, I mean, when we.
You should probably do a 1 year.
Can we do a 1
Extension.
year
Right.
until you can get things squared away?
Rolling 1 year.
Yeah,
All those.
I mean, you hate to do that too,
No,
but
but once again, if it's acceptable to the other party,
true.
I don't see why it wouldn't be, but.
Well, I mean, everything's up in the air, so I don't think they're gonna say no to an extension until everything's squared away.
Being
I would think.
logical.
Yeah. I know.
So,
I do think the towns have expressed interest in opening the regional agreement. And I mean, that's our community, so we need to work together, and with the leases being up, I think it's only logical that we need to begin this process, long, short, or indifferent. It's work that I think we need to do.
and again, I had hoped to have the training in the summer, but we couldn't get it in May and June, and we were able to get it in September, but we got it. And we have new members who were looking to learn and listen as well. So I would suspect we would do the same, is if we have a motion and a second, we would then move towards to have a representative from each town to be on the regional amendment agreement committee. And then we would then open it up like we did before. We had like 15 to 18 people on that committee to go through. We had a facilitator, we had the superintendent, we had a facilitator that went through it. And we can look at the basic things, any type of language, and then if there's any heavy lift, that can be secondary when it comes to like potential releases. That's going to be the heavy lift.
Did we have two separate committees? I remember it just being the
No,
one.
it's only one. And I recommend it should be one, not two.
Right.
And then we can look at it as we go along, but I would look at language first before you go to the leases.
No, I agree with that. It's just that when we went through the process, I just remember we had selectmen on there and school committee people, and I don't remember like us doing the wording and then bringing it to them at that next big meeting. It was all one group.
It's all one group, right, Jess?
Yep.
There was a representative from the school
Legal,
committee.
yep,
Then there was a representative from a select board person.
yep.
And I believe there was a community person that a town could have as well.
Mhm.
So I think that's,
It was, I was Hubbardston's community person at that
you were
time.
Barry's,
No, I was the chair of this.
well, you were there because I was the chair of the committee at the time. So you had to be on the working committee there. Anybody else? Oh, Peg.
And one of our selectmen.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Do you remember who we had?
I think it was Joe.
Barry?
I think it was Joe too. Or was it?
I don't even remember who we had from the school.
I can see the person you had from Barry. I can't think of their name though.
Kathy Inman?
No,
No.
Mm.
Too
no, I
far.
think she was teaching at the time still.
Mhm.
We didn't have,
That was 14, yeah, 13.
yeah, so we didn't take any teachers.
I think it was Riley, maybe from Hardwick. Was Riley on there?
No, she was on a later committee.
I'm sure we have minutes somewhere.
I'm sure we
We
did.
do. We'll go.
I can find them if you want.
We'll go that same type of outline. We'll look at that. If that committee approves. And is there a motion? Move forward.
All right, so I'll motion to move forward with the idea of forming a subcommittee to look at what needs to be done with, in partnership with, the superintendent
Of course.
and the administration.
And the way it was recommended to us from Mars, is that you would say you would make a motion to move to potentially amend the regional agreement. That was the language they used?
I think what Lee is thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what Lee is thinking is maybe at this point, we make a motion to form the committee. We do some due diligence, because I also want to make sure we have the right lawyer, because there are some legal counsel that really work on regional agreements and others that don't. The person we use currently for all of our normal sort of school functions is not a regional agreement expert. However, there are two other people that are. I would appreciate being able to contact them and see what their timeline is to be able to help us with that. And then after we have that information, I feel like maybe what you're leaning towards is when we have a timeline, we know what it's going to be, we're ready to move to that process. Then we send invites out, we can form the committee, we get our dates together, all of that, but then not actually using that motion for amendment just yet. Am I reading you correctly?
Okay, that's good. That's perfect. Good. Is there a
Am I
second?
picking up what you
So
put?
can I just get the wording on the motion? So am I correct that
To
your
form a
motion is to
committee.
move forward with forming a subcommittee,
To
potential regional agreement?
to investigate
Jane?
potential changes to the regional agreement.
And leases.
Well, I don't know, do
Don't
you
you
want
want
to
to put that
say? You want to, yeah, I guess we could couple them, and the lease agreement, which expires on June 30th, 2025.
Regional agreement and leases?
Yes.
and lease agreements with the towns.
Yeah.
For the elementary schools, which all expire June 30th.
Second?
Second.
Second, okay. Walter, any further discussion? My comment is if you're interested, please email Jess and we'll go from there to see who we can get a representative from each town. So I know Peg, thank you.
And Jess.
Okay, thanks. You don't have to, Emily, I got it.
Okay.
So, any comments? Any
So I
questions?
think you have to put guidance out as from the school committee's end. I mean, I guess it would be nice if we had one school committee member from each town, but I don't think it's mandatory. I mean, from my point of view, if we want, if we want some people from Hubbardston because maybe somebody from Barry doesn't want it, whatever. I mean, I don't think you should make it hard and fast that one from each town. That would be preferable. But I think, I'm not making a motion out of it, but I think
No.
it's something to think about.
We would work.
Yeah.
To see what is best.
But I think you want to open it up to every town. I mean, I would assume somebody from each town would want to participate.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's
right.
what we did last time in
Yeah.
13 too.
But in case that doesn't occur, then we can, I don't want to, I'm gonna say, okay, we'll only have four school committee members because, Barry doesn't have anybody that wants to join. I'd say, well, fine, take two from Hubbardston or two from Hart, but whatever, whoever wants to do it.
Yeah, we can,
So, I mean, that's obviously preferable the way we'd like to do it.
That's right.
we'll work that, okay? Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? So, you're not a voting member, but do you see all other perspectives that we are doing, not just curriculum, extra, that type of perspective?
Yeah.
Policies and changes and something that's going to affect this district, not just for a year, but 25 years. And appreciate any comment you have along the way, anytime.
All right, thank you.
So there are a couple more sections in the report. I think Jill's probably pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. I just wanted to mention like staffing, we're almost fully hired and just highlight that we did make a shift kind of in our SLPs this year. It's a very hard to find position. We've actually been with an SLP at Ruggles Lane since December of last year. We hired somebody at the start of this year, left us very shortly after. So what we decided to do was after searching for an SLP, we decided to go with an SLPA. So we're gonna have another SLPA and evaluate how that looks at the end of the year. We have an SLP currently at Ruggles Lane who is phenomenal and everybody loves her a lot. It's so far working out very well, so I have high hopes that this also works. And then I had missed the subcommittee that we had last month due to a family issue. But what we had talked about then was kind of in spirit of what Colleen was saying about exploration of other programming for students. We had talked about kind of investigating, restarting like an alternative learning program like we had a little over a year ago, and starting that process of investigating and what we would need to do to make a program that would be sustainable. The one that we had last time, it was just hard to sustain. That's all I got.
Beautiful.
And the only thing I want to point out is, so we still have Greg's section in here. I think we'll transition it to part of Shelley's with the Innovation Pathway Program. We completed our final report, our reflection. We had our industry partner meeting. We're anticipating our number of Innovation Pathway students to grow. And then there are just a couple things I want to point out with athletics. So tomorrow is a very big day because there are, I think there's a triple header for field hockey. The following week is homecoming weekend. So the football team is playing. And if you haven't been to a football game yet, it is a great night to go. But two things I want to point out. So I want you to see these terrific cheerleaders here. These are our youth cheerleaders. Our cheerleaders now attend our football games. This is the first year that they've cheered for football. And we also have a pep band that plays at our football games now. So it really has brought so many more people to the event because parents of our cheerleaders and parents of our pep band are all coming to our games as well. And it's really just added to the excitement. Have you been to a football game yet, Ella?
I actually haven't because my swim practice time
Oh.
is like right then, but I think I'll probably go to the homecoming.
Homecoming, bonfire after.
Farmers scheme got very, very high. Shelley is sitting at 309 minutes.
Wow.
Tomorrow would be a 400th one, and that's a huge day in field hockey. So
It's incredible.
she is not aware of it.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Well.
How is that
she's not-
possible?
She,
I know.
she wasn't aware of it until Rich said something to her. The team is not aware of it.
No
Keep
pressure.
it quiet.
I got it.
I contacted all the alum.
Yes, he cut contact.
Oh, sweet.
They're all getting things, hopefully, with the wind, you know.
Lots of
And it's a
pressure.
doable win because we're playing Westboro.
Yeah.
Westboro plays on turf, we play on grass, so we have the upper hand, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
The girls got me 2 cases of Diet Coke last week. I, a small wager on field hockey.
Hmm? Yeah, like,
Yeah, because middle school will play at 3 and then one plays at what, 4:30?
4 and
JV
6.
plays at 4, I believe, and then varsity at 6 with senior
Middle
night.
school's first. Yeah.
Good.
And
Okay.
golf is senior night tomorrow, too.
Yeah.
So before we go to committee reports, school business manager?
Okay.
Yep. Everything was in my report.
Okay, everything is there. Did you need anything about warrants, anything?
I mean, they're listed there. If you want me to rattle off a bunch of letters and numbers, I'm happy to do that if you're happy to see them.
We're okay, whatever it was. I just remember Cheryl always reading them. So that's why I wasn't sure how.
They're signed, sealed.
They're signed?
Paid already.
Yes,
right. Now everything's listed.
good, good.
All right.
Is there anything on acceptance of any grants?
No, we don't have to take, because we're not getting cash up front. Since
Okay.
they're reimbursements,
Okay,
and because the expenses are approved through the warrant process, we're good.
we're good. All
Yep.
right. Teacher advisory council? Subcommittee reports? And administrative review,
Nothing, audit, nothing,
budget,
Nothing.
central office, nothing.
collective bargaining?
We were gonna meet on one of the.
Food and nutrition.
Yep.
Got a date?
You haven't scheduled one yet.
Okay, no problem, nothing yet.
Now that you're back, though, we will.
Okay. Buildings and grounds, safety? So wait, before we do that, hold on, student services? Nothing? Technology?
We were supposed to be before our meeting last week, so we delayed it until next month.
Okay. Nothing on ad hoc?
Nothing.
And policy and review, reform.
Yes. Interesting meeting. Policy ADS, School District Wellness Program. You can see what it says. It's mostly updating, fine tuning. You know, the red is. The red we add or we take out?
The red is new language. Everything,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, what's crossed out is, yeah.
So you can see, there's a one yellow on page unnumbered. Marketing, healthy choice. So that's for the, what you put on the table till next meeting. Non-discrimination and harassment. Basically the same thing. Was this the one where you were gonna, do a little bit of modifying for us?
I did on the wellness policy.
That was the wellness one, okay.
Right.
Again, policy AC. Non-discrimination, that's just being updated. That means we can rescind ACA, ACAB, ACE. When policy AC is accepted. So that's good. I'm gonna skip over new facilities for the time being. Student presentation on later school starts, that's this green one. This kid was a freshman. And this was based on an eighth grade project that he had done. Sam Feldman. Very well done, very well presented, very persuasive, except it didn't persuade us. For new members, the high school kids, middle school kids will say, we're older, we need more sleep. Why do you pick us up with a bus first at such an early point in the morning? We want to sleep in a little bit more, it's good for us. It's true. Our number one job, number one as school committee, is to keep the kids safe. And in the middle of winter, when it's dark and the snow banks and it's slippery and it's hard to see, we double run our buses. I think everybody knows that. So that the first run is for the older kids, it's you guys, who can handle themselves better in the dark, in the snow, in the slippery, in the cold. And then the littler ones come next when it's more likely to be light, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no good way to overcome that particular predicament, other than if we had twice as many buses, which we're not gonna have. And if we removed it, we could move everything later, but then that follows up everything after school. So we said, thank you. If you have any better thoughts, if you have new thoughts or whatever, come back and talk to us. But that's the way it is. Thank you. You did a good job. Class size. We decided long ago that there, being as there are small classes, we as a committee need to know what they are and why they are. Once upon a time, there were many more. Now there are fewer. And it's foreign language or some of the advanced courses or ROTC or some of the music. But things where kids can't get the courses that they want, the classes that they want. In big 24, 25 person groups. And we think that the quality of education that we have is very important, and that these classes are important. We need to know what they are. And we do know, and we don't feel that this, we think it's our responsibility to help maintain these. And not do away with this one or that one or the other one or so forth. So we're online with those. Now we come to this naming business. Dennis, the operator, was here and he helped provide some background and information. Lee gave us a presentation. He's done a great job. After the central, well, this committee or that? Okay, thank you.
Oh, his homework.
Yep, he, having listened to all that went on last year, came up with a second draft. And that's in your packet. Now, ultimately, we were persuaded by all of the conversation. How many of these things can we name? Who are these people? Do we even know who they are 50 years later? Anybody besides me? What can we best do to honor them, to maintain the history, our past, which is important? And there's a couple of things that as a committee, we felt made good sense. Having something like an honor roll or a listing in one of the corridors of the people who have helped make this district what it is, with a description of who and what they are. Lee and I had some chatting about Roger Langley. Nobody here knows who he is. I do. But he was a very important person. One of the buildings, schools, which has it's now gone, the High Plains School, was named after him. He was the founder of the ski patrol. Very important person. both in the district and in the larger perspective. So we think having this honor roll, or we can make it, put a different name with a description of the first. Both physically, and I think it was Lee mentioned online. So that may be a better way even to communicate with upcoming generations. The idea of a grotto was mentioned. We support that. Some sort of a place with a little bit of greenery, a bench or two, where people can think about who these folks are. We support that and recommend that to you also. And I think we were all in agreement on all of this. And Peggy has an addition to what we had agreed to. Peg, you want to?
No, I mean, when we were just talking with Dennis, I thought, you know, the plaque idea that he had like behind the backstop or over by the soccer field wasn't an invasive thing to do. You know, I don't know how everybody else feels. I mean, those two people were kind of segregated to those spots, you know,
Mike
that,
Turcott and Mike
Yeah.
Flynn.
yeah, oh, sorry. So I kind of melted on that one, you know, thinking, I get it, you know, I mean, the
Well-
time and energy and effort and who they were.
I did some more thinking about that and I presented it to Peg for the committee to see if that made sense to her, and it didn't. But I was thinking maybe in addition to this, each town in its own way can decide to honor people in that town, maybe with a plaque or something. We have a John Sorelli tree up at Ruggles Lane. So that I think the idea of each town deciding who they wanted to honor, how they wanted to do it, in addition to what we do as a school, which is the honor roll and the grotto, would be sensible. So that's sort of, that's our mulling and thinking and all of the good information from Lee and our discussions and all. That's kind of where we are. So I would say make a motion that we have the honor roll both physically and electronically, the grotto, and I think a separate motion ought to be on this local town thing. So let me make those 2 points.
I'll make the motion. I've got a comment. Let's do the motion in a second because I've got a comment.
Is it a motion on the policy?
Yeah, right now,
No.
it's not an emotion. We have a policy in place right now. So the question really is directionality, I thought.
Right,
I thought it was directionality.
right. Do we go with draft one, the second
Right,
draft,
so-
do we like these?
So the second draft is in opposition to the first draft. I've done both. The two main differences are the first draft, the school committee does everything. We review stuff, we look at this, we make whatever checklists, et cetera. Second draft, what we're saying is, I think I'm saying, but I thought most of the subcommittee agreed, is that, you know what, we really don't know much about these people. I mean, whoever comes in, we could get 10 people and they can, you know, go off every checklist, but there's 100 more we don't know about. This becomes a race of who has the biggest megaphone. And so right now, the athletic people, the athletic group, and more power to them, they do what they're supposed to do, but they have the biggest megaphone, so they could come and say, hey, we want, you know, Turcotte and Diamond, but I don't know of any other people. Personally, I don't. That's why when Dick brought up last year, the High Plains person, and he starts regaling us, well, he did this, he did ski patrol, he did all this stuff, and it's like, I wouldn't know this. I know he has a little plaque there by the school that's been taken down in High Plains. And I'm thinking, well, how many other people do any of us not know about that maybe they should have something named after them? Why should, you know, I almost feel like we're a little arrogant to say, oh yeah, we're gonna do this. So that's why in draft 2, it's pretty much handing it off in a reasonable degree to the superintendent to set something up, set a subcommittee up, her own subcommittee with any number of people. In the print, I put a number of people, but could also include alumni or whomever. And have students and educators, et cetera, who probably know these people better or should know these people better or have a better idea of, well, what should be named within the district, and let them get together, make these decisions, a decision, if it's a positive one, and then come to the school committee to say, here's what we want to do, you know, either yay or nay. So it kind of takes us out of that whole approach, because I mean, does anybody here, I can't name 20 people, and I'm sure anybody can pick a name and say, there's this person, and I'm sitting here, I don't know who they are, and you can just run through a whole bunch of neat things they've done. But how would I know to vote for them if I don't know of them? So there's that. And then the other thing is in draft 2, no naming of buildings or grounds, whereas in draft 1, that is still in place. So those are the two key differences. What draft 2 does a little more of it addresses, there are a number of things that are already named, and I think the superintendent last June or something, I think it was around the June meeting, you know, gave a handout as to all that stuff. And the school committee has never had a vote on any of those names. Not to say that we shouldn't or should, but it just never came up to us. So, you know, so that didn't come to us. So essentially saying, listen, whatever's named right now, let's leave it named. If the school committee wishes to address that sometime in the future, we can do it. But to me, that's not something we need to get into as to, you know, oh, well, should we cut down the tree because we didn't, you know, vote for the tree named after somebody. And the other thing it does, it mentions that we know the elementary schools, we do not have the same control that we do over the middle high school. And that probably should be something that is maybe specifically addressed in the next lease agreement. I think the current lease agreement, there's good language that sort of covers us to control what goes on in the elementary schools, but it's something we've never paid attention to. And I think that in a way the towns haven't. So if they come in and put a bench for somebody, I don't think they're trying to really transgress and say, hey, we're going to do what we want. There's just never been any interaction between us and the towns to say, you know, maybe you should come to us first before, you know, the John Smith bench goes up at, you know, at Ruggles or something like that. So I think that's something that that should be sort of specifically addressed. And maybe if the town wants to do something in one of their elementaries, maybe once again, maybe we have a you know, a couple school committee members, a couple town members, and say, let's sit down and see what direction this is going. So that's why the second draft essentially is taking most of it out of our hands. And the first draft, which I presented last June, is pretty much keeping everything within our area, but we still don't have all the stuff, because that's why we're looking for a direction. If the full committee says, let's go with the first draft, then, you know, we will go with it. I wouldn't support it, but I'll carve it to however it would be. And the second draft, I think, you know, it's leaner. We don't have to put as much in there. There are probably a couple other things we might want to look at, but pretty much it hands a lot of it to the superintendent and those people that are in our schools.
And you know, one thing we didn't talk about was like renaming. When we're all gone and, you know, they have that policy, can they stop and say, we're not gonna name it that school anymore? You know, we want to change it to Billy Bob School, you know, I mean, they can do that, right? They can amend their policy.
Yeah, that's a future school committee can do that. And the other thing, so when Peggy and I were chatting, I know, you know, we chatted and then you and I chatted when Trish Worthington brought up and said, oh gee, her father helped build a little league field, I guess it was. And he has a metal plaque on the chain link fence there, and you and I chatted about that.
That's not a bad thing, you know, right?
Right, but so and I don't have, you know, the problem I have with all this is equity. I mean, if somebody says to me, hey, Lee, you've been on the school committee over 20 years, we want to put a plaque on a chain link fence that says, oh, 20 years and it's like, you know, well, fine if you do it, but what's the point? I mean, I could see the point of a little league field after somebody who set it up. I could see the point of a chain link fence, a plaque for Mike Diamond on the baseball field. But how about the wrestlers? How about the ROTC kids or?
And like you said, it's who speaks up, you know. it's-
Well, I know that, but so it becomes a matter of equity, and I know there are certain elements that within the school itself that, because we took a walk through.
Yeah.
Is it the music, there were a couple groups, is it the music people that have their own?
Little Hall of Fame.
Right,
Little Hall of
and
Fame,
obviously
you have,
and the athletic people have
athletics.
theirs down there and all that, so that's one thing, but still, if it's like. And they have maybe a bigger megaphone for themselves and a little more organization for themselves, but. You know, there are different entities that it's sort of like, should we honor these people? How about, the custodial staff? I mean, people have been on maybe 30, 35 years, and to say, I mean, we're so proud of our gyms, we're so proud of our school buildings, and we talk about every year, we comment on that, and the kids will comment on it too when they go to other schools, but yet, have we honored anybody that really is responsible for that? So it's sort of equity. How would you honor that? I mean, how would you do that? So that's why I'm giving it to the superintendent.
And again, as we hear, if anybody
Thanks
else
so much.
for their comments, remember draft one back in February, people had some problems with it, so we forwarded it back to subcommittee. Now you have a draft two with you're asking for a directionality to then put together a policy, because we're not voting this language now.
Right.
But it's really a directionality, so. Again, I'm making just my comment, I want to hear from anybody else, I think your hand was up. I like the second draft directionality for the committee to work and to finalize. We still have, we have one in place. But now we can make an adjustment. I think, Deb, and then Dave.
I was actually gonna make a motion to table the second draft naming issue dated October 7th, 2024. The only amendment would be add alumni, like you said, in the parentheses part, but I think that really captures all of our discussions, and we can move forward from this issue, with a good policy that I think we can all work there.
You would still need to come up with a policy on it, but the directionality is giving. If we give the
Ready to say,
blessing.
either go into draft one or go towards draft two.
Exactly.
Okay,
Right.
so I thought that was
So
your
I
actual draft
support
policy.
No.
draft two, and my comment is. Who are we naming these things for? Is it for the? Ella, I'm sure probably has no idea who Mike Diamond or Ray Turcotte were. And they were fine men, and they were fine leaders, and they were fine educators. But in terms of motivating and acknowledging these people, Mike Diamond, I had him as a teacher. Ray Turcotte, I had as a teacher. So I've got in the late 60s. So I've got a memory of those people. Mike Diamond gave me my only F in.
Give you an F in PE?
Yeah, I got an F in PE. I went through the.
I hope your daughter heard that.
I went through the parallel bars. I would put couldn't do the parallel bars, so I got an F.
But
Anyway.
but they already have a place in our Hall of Fame,
Yeah, fine.
both of them,
Right,
correct?
right. But what I'm saying is it for the kids that are the students who occupy these buildings? You got a picture of George Washington or Abraham Lincoln, whatever. Everybody, that's a common memory for everyone. But in terms of a plaque or a memory on those people that have been long gone, and the students have got other people in their lives in the building, equity, that are motivating them, and it's not just the teachers and the instructional aides, it's the people that are serving them food and the people that are cleaning the buildings. So that to me makes a lot more sense, and this second draft makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, the second draft is what we as a subcommittee coalesced around with a tweaker or two, perhaps.
No, it's just good, Lee, I can't remember how we would deal with, like, some things got named without anybody knowing about it.
Correct.
I mean, will that cover that?
Well, once again, if that's, if we, to get the direction from the full committee, then we go back and let it, whatever draft it is and say, okay, let's hone it down. I mean, we talked about, we talked about it, and I guess I called it the elephant in the room.
Yeah,
Sue Musnicki, having the middle school gym named after her. I love Sue,
yeah, me
great
too.
person, everybody
Yeah.
does, but nobody, when I say nobody knew about it, pretty much nobody.
Yeah, I didn't.
The kicker for me, no school committee member knew about it as far as I'm concerned, but the kicker for me was when I spoke with the athletic director, and then he was going to an event in the middle school that day, and somebody said, oh, the Susan Musnicki gym, and he said, what are you talking about? And if the athletic director, who pretty much runs our whole show, and he's been here for many years,
9 years.
it does not know that, gee, a basketball gym has been named after somebody and nobody came to you to ask, that's part of why,
Yeah.
that's what we have to protect against. I mean, that's a good example of, kind of things running amok a bit with who knows.
No, I like giving it back to Colleen.
Anybody else?
If I'm not mistaken, this building was supposed to be named after Dr. Marshall. Where does that stand in relation to this policy?
There was a vote taken, Jess, how many years ago?
Oh my, I can't remember.
2007.
It's before I came here. Before I came to
2007.
This building.
It was school committee, that was the only item, and again, that was, again,
So the background there is
it's on hold.
the superintendent was leaving, Maureen Marshall was leaving us for the first time. No, really, and we thought she's going, and there was a lot of emotion involved there. And at the end of the meeting, without discussion, at least I wasn't involved in it. I don't think many other, if any members, because I think the chair at the time was sort of blindsided. One of the members made a motion and said, let's name this building after Maureen Marshall.
Correct.
And so once again, look at the dynamic. You're sitting here, school committee members, your superintendent of 20 some odd, whatever years is leaving. Who's going to vote against that?
It was unanimous.
So the committee voted for it and no action has ever been taken.
Right.
That's where it sits.
And I thought last year we had put a moratorium. When we talked about this as a committee, we said a moratorium until we did an inventory and everything else. And it was a moratorium. And if we go back to our notes, that there was nothing else being named going forward.
So we're undoing the vote of the.
No, we haven't undone anything.
We haven't done anything.
There's been no action on it.
Okay.
Anybody else on directionality?
So can I just have a clarification because I'm just trying to, are we? Is your second draft going to totally replace policy FF or are we adding policy FF?
We're gonna talk
The second
about that
draft
at the November meeting.
Yeah.
Replace it. We're looking to replace it.
To replace it, okay,
Eventually, this is just directionality.
yeah, well, that's what I'm just, was a little confused by, so.
Yep.
But we're not putting that on the table.
Correct.
We're not gonna vote to put that on the table
No.
for the review.
Yeah, no, there's no.
Okay,
I'm gonna make a motion to put ADF, AC and accept the class size report. That goes on the table for the next meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any
for
comments?
all of those,
Those are, yep, all of those. Put them on the table.
class size doesn't, yeah.
Class size is not.
No. Okay.
And then they'll be reviewed and will be taken off the table next meeting. Public can have a review as well. Will be on the website. Any comments can be made? Any other comment? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous? And then lastly, on directionality is what we need. A last piece on that. Anybody else have a comment or any direction to you? Here's the time. So far, I'm hearing people are liking the second draft. I think we're hearing a majority of that, but there are other folks that haven't didn't say anything and they don't have to, if you don't want to. It's up to you.
Question, so on the second draft, given it back to superintendent, I mean, I think I'd rather support that to be able to do a subcommittee. I'm wondering, are there gonna be any criteria to, to be able to nominate someone? Do they have to be employed for 20 years? Is it just random? This person's been here for 50 years, this person thing, but someone just nominated them. So I'm just wondering if there has to be certain things that should be met to be able to be nominated to have something named after.
So that would be, this, within the superintendent's
Part of the
subcommittee, for lack of a better
procedure, I
term.
would imagine.
They are going to set everything, the plan, I think, is they will set everything up, and obviously the superintendent can come to them. Gee, this is what we're looking to do, this is the approach we want to take, let's have a discussion on it. So, so obviously she and her subcommittee can have our input too. But but like I'm saying, handoff.
No, I understand the handoff. I just didn't know if there was gonna be some like basic parameters that needed to be met to even go to the next step.
Nope.
I think some of us felt too that we didn't want anything named. You know,
Right. Right.
that's kind of the best avenue to go because somebody will be offended at some point if they're left out or whatever. They were trying to come up with some sort of honorary place or thing to incorporate to make it all people happy.
And look how much time we're spending on this in a year
Right.
for us to talk about this, which is very important.
And we spent an hour on it last week.
And
Certainly did.
you're absolutely right. And
Yeah.
the direction is where we wanted the committee to know. That's because, again, last year, it froze, and so they come back. And now they have come back, and they'll come back again, as you said, in November meeting. But do you like the direction of the second draft?
Yes,
Yes,
that's where we are.
I see a majority there, so thank you
Are
very
you back
much,
to no naming?
Dr.
No naming. I say no naming.
Dr. Allen and Lee, thank you for the work on
I
that.
like no naming.
And that,
Yeah, that's cute.
Peggy, that could be a,
Yeah, that's all.
that could be a vote, maybe, that could be a vote. That could be,
Okay.
you could always vote
Okay.
on that.
Maybe.
That's yours.
I know you are.
You might be able to get a consensus.
All right. Unfinished business is none.
Makes sense.
Public comment,
There's nobody from the public.
school committee concerns? No school committee concerns? No new business? No request for executive session? Motion to adjourn. So move second and adjourn.